Mr. Bailey?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Herbert?
Here.
Dr. Bussey?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Present.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mayor Rubin?
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown,
Yes, sir.
would you like to say the invocation for us?
Oh, wow, I got two today? All right, making this one short. Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, please bless this beautiful day, this gathering of people who always strive to make Columbia the best place for all of our citizens. Keep us forever mindful of our importance as well as your importance in our lives as we make decisions for the people of Columbia. Amen.
Well, good afternoon. We will get started with city council discussion today on two items, and both are somewhat related to each other, potentially. The first being our fiscal year 2024-2025 special revenue budget. Ms. Missy Coffin, our budget program management and grants director, will assist with taking us through the information on hospitality tax, state accommodations tax, tourism development fee, and the liquor permit rebate. Obviously, we are in the budget season, and so you all did a phenomenal job last year of taking on these special revenue budgets early and then awaiting committee recommendations and the like. And I thought that was great that we were able to get information back out to some of our line item agencies and others that had applied for hospitality tax in particular. And then in addition, we wanted to update you all on the special event fees. Mr. Harold Reeves, our special event coordinator, has been doing a yeoman's job with instituting a new process that I do think is working well. I think with the implementation and council's directive last budget year that we go in this regard to, for the first time, try to recoup some of the costs associated with events that we've never done in the past. We've had really a wonderful start to that, and we just wanted to take a minute to update you all and the public on how that's going. I know Mr. Brennan in particular wanted us to add this, and if there's any, things we need to talk about from your perspective to do any differently, we can. I don't recommend too many changes at this point, but we'll talk about it when we get to that item. So with that, we'll get started with the first item, Missy.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, City Council. I'm looking forward to talking with you all today. I know this is your favorite topic, right?
It's yours.
Well, sometimes. I would like to take an opportunity. I have a couple folks here. Tina Saxon, y'all know, she's our grants coordinator. Many of you all hear from her or don't have to hear from her anymore, or our agencies. But also Stephanie is with us. Stephanie Sears-Keen, she's a budget analyst, but in the management and budget analyst in the budget office. And then we have Tyler Ward, who is one of the interns with us in the intern program. So I wanted to take opportunity to introduce them to you. So today we're going to talk about special revenues, which is our Thank you. That's right, it's reversed. This includes our special revenues from hospitality tax, state accommodations, local accommodations or tourism development fee, and then liquor permit rebate, and some other considerations. And we start with these funds in part because there's some city council direction that we need that will fill in some of the other items regarding the budget and with regards to the committees. City council, through the budget process, we've done very good the past couple of years, being able to allocate an amount during this time frame for the hospitality tax committee and the accommodations tax committee, so that when they meet in deliberations, they know exactly how much they have available as they're making their recommendations that will come back to city council for consideration. So we'll start with our hospitality budget. And you all have in your packet, we did submit a slightly revised hospitality budget, just cleaning up a couple of items just for your awareness. Not too much has changed since our original projections to you during the retreat in March, just a month ago. Our hospitality tax revenues, we've projected at 14.9 million. That's an increase of 1.3 over the current year budget, which is about 10%. But it's in line with what we collected in prior year and what we are seeing in collections in the current year. So we are feeling pretty good about those projections. We're continuing to see some growth in our revenues from the hospitality tax, and I'm excited to see that funding source continue to grow.
Yes, I'm sorry, I want to interrupt you. Now, is council following the most recent printed version of the PowerPoint slides?
Yes.
They have that in front of them, okay, because I know they also have the previous information. I know sometimes we get,
Yes.
we're looking at multiple things.
So I'm
You
sorry,
want
thank
them
you.
to
Thank you,
follow
Ms.
the
Wilson.
slides, right?
So the slide, yes, so Ms. Erica's provided you with the slide deck. She's also printed for you a packet of the memo that was sent to you on Friday, along with the line item agency request. What we provided today was the PowerPoint presentation, and then just a revised version of the hospitality tax budget summary with the presentation that's not in your notebooks. Sorry about that. Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
What's your question?
Nothing, I'll figure out which page to.
Okay,
So on the slides, we're on slide 4.
so in their, Councilwoman Herbert's asking, in their previous information, would they cross out anything at this point? That's
Oh,
what
okay. It would have been probably page 5.
I'm good, because I didn't have the power previous. I was just wondering if anything in this packet that we was.
The revision is with the hospitality tax budget summary.
So whatever.
The memo is the same.
The memo has changed. Some of the dollar amounts have changed on these. We have not sent you a revised memo. That was,
Okay,
because there are a few slight changes to the dollar amounts based on the budget.
Page 8 of the packet.
Thank you. Okay, all right. So back to the slides, slides and then the budget. The revenues have not changed from the memo that was provided to you. 14.9 million. We've not projected any use of fund balance in this proposed budget because all the fund balance that we anticipate for the current year or any anticipated fund balance is committed towards the hospitality, Finley Park budget, Finley Park revitalization project that is underway. But so far on projected revenues, we are already close to collecting the current year budget. So we are anticipating we should see some savings or surplus in the current year. Any questions about the revenues? Next is just for information. This is nothing new. You all have seen this information before. This just kind of describes the different allocation groups that we have in the hospitality tax budget. It is also referenced in your memo. I just have it summarized here on this one slide for reference. And this is where we'll get into a little bit about what changed in the memo with regards to hospitality tax. In the hospitality tax, you have a couple of different allocation groups. The first one we'll look at is the line item agencies and then the hospitality tax grant review, the hospitality tax grant committee. So last year during the budget process, City Council made an allocation to the committee that was based on the current year budget plus the equal growth in the revenues. So in this case, what we've projected in the budget you have before you is the current year allocation plus a 10% adjustment. Of course, that's just a recommendation based on how the allocation was made last year. What we're here today to talk about, of course, is the ability, is whether or not City Council wants to take that same approach or consider another amount for an allocation that would be allocated to the committee. So showing on your budget for the Hospitality Tax Committee, you can see that the current year budget is $3,268,000, and next year's request or projected amount would show $3,594,000. That's an increase of $326,000 or 10%. that amount is what's different in the descriptions in the memo. Again, this is for city council consideration. You may want to make some other adjustments as we proceed through the discussions, but did want to point that out as the budget does have some flexibility there for that, for those allocations. Next, we would have the line item agencies. The line item agencies, the current year budget is 2.5 million, and we've projected an allocation of 2.8 million, and again, 10% of 258,000. They actually, the committee, the hospitality tax line item agencies, you have, city council makes those allocations. You have their applications. They've actually requested a total of $3,435,000, which is about $755,000 increase over the current year. Of course, we're not looking for the direction today, but consideration going forward in terms of how we would allocate the final budget for the proposed budget for 24-25.
When do you want to try to finalize this?
So today, either we can discuss whether or not you want to keep that same dollar amounts, and then you can come back and decide how you want to allocate to these specific line item agencies, or if city council wants to come back later at the next budget discussion and let us know how much you want to allocate towards. I would say that the committee allocation is probably the most specific one to make today. The committee meets the first week of May. Those dates are being set for the hospitality tax committee. The accommodations tax committee will meet the following week.
So Missy, this sheet here, the handout sheet.
Yes.
It doesn't show on the projected, the 10%
It does.
increase,
It does.
the 2.816.
The 2.8 million, 8,038,000.
The 2.838 is the line item agencies.
That's, oh, I'm sorry, 3,594,800 is for the committee. I wasn't sure which one we're talking about.
Right, and so that is reflecting the 10% recommendation.
Yes,
But it's also, based off what we know, it is under the total amount of requests, right?
yes, ma'am.
But it's 10% more than
Last year.
last year, so I just want to make sure they understood that.
That, the,
Go ahead.
the committee, the applications that come through the committee process, the application process, those requests actually total 6.3 million if they, for all of them, for all of the requests received.
And then, I think what I was jumping to was the line item doesn't show the 10% increase.
It shows just the total allocation. It doesn't show each group getting a 10%. It just shows a total of allocation amount of 2.8 million, pending what city council may want to. I don't want to
Okay.
assume how much council may want to adjust between the different groups.
Right. Okay. With the 2.838.
2.8, right. So again, so if city council, if you all want to stay with that same 10% adjustment, then the total allocation for the committee would be 3,594,800. The allocation for the line item agencies in total would be 2,838,000.
So just to be clear on the line items though, because y'all received the packets on Friday, the total requests are higher than the 10%.
And what we have, yeah.
It's like 3.4 million.
Well, we've all, I think, gotten letters in the last couple of days as well.
Ultimately, those requests, the committee request would come back to city council in June for city council final approval and consideration. Okay. Any other questions or comments about the?
Good question, Missy. So, maybe last year, 2 years ago, we put aside money for traffic bollards.
So we do have that in for discussion today as well.
What revenue stream is that?
That in the allocation that you made before, it was from hospitality.
So is that already in here?
So that is listed along with several other requests. What we have as part of the other considerations we'll talk about towards the end. This right here, we're just talking about right now is just the committee and the line item agencies. We're just kind of taking each of the section of the allocations as we go along.
So just to reverse, you want us today to give you a committee number.
Committee number
Anything
2.
else we'll deal with at round 2, because I think there obviously needs to be some discussion.
Right.
So the question to council is do you want to give the committee the 10% increase?
I do.
I do, too. I mean, there's more people that qualify for that process, so I think we should give it to them, where the line item agencies are pretty much the same.
Well, the line item, there's a big bump in line item.
Yeah,
I
well,
know.
that's what I'm saying, we gotta have discussion around that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is to be able to give them more flexibility to recommend more groups to be funded is
I
always a
think they
good
had
thing,
17 new applications.
which is
so-
great, yeah.
Which is a good
Well, and
thing.
I think a lot of them are including clean and safe separately as well.
Those are on that's in that other pile.
Is in the other pile?
Well, from what we did last year is,
They're in both clean and safe. So that application actually comes to the committee for allocation. And then city council made an additional allocation for a pilot
Expand it.
project for expansion. Yes.
and then obviously, the bollards and all of that we need to talk about because some of that's still needed and that money should be carried over somewhere.
Right.
So I guess,
We have some money in the bank.
so the majority, I mean, I guess the question really is so that Ms. Wilson has a direct, y'all are good with, let's give the committee the bump and let them go ahead and move forward for their May meeting?
I think so.
I think there's
Historically, have we
consensus.
followed those projections, like in past years?
In terms of our actual collections or,
Well, no, as far as our recommended allotment at the committee level. If it's, let's say, 4 years ago, there was only a 5% projected increase, would council typically then increase?
No, we actually gave them less money
Less?
than we are now. We're giving them more money than they've ever had.
this is probably more generous in terms of consistency and the increase to the committee that we have done on a more regular basis. There hasn't always been like a specific amount that they increase the allocation for the committee by. It's really been based on available revenues and the allocations. But as city council has adhered a lot more to the committee, making it more consistent so that they have an amount to project, yes, they stick to that. When the recommendations come back to city council, y'all did make a few tweaks to what the committee recommended, but for the most part, the recommendations from the committee stood.
There may be some people that we feel like need to get a little more money that didn't, so we do a little penmanship there. at the end.
Financial engineering.
Financial engineering, okay, I like that.
You got Tourette's over there?
I was just gonna like the word.
So I know this is a lot of back and forth because a lot of it in terms of just trying to keep track of current year things and then what we're looking at projecting going forward. So I'm looking at some
I like
baselines
the
for how we're
committee
projecting.
structure, so I'm for it.
Right.
Is
There
that
are a few little
consensus?
things coming out, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Sounds
good
good.
with it.
That is very helpful both for staff and the committee. And then that way we're able to approve, city council's able to approve those awards before the start of the fiscal year when many of them have events that start as early as July.
So what's the timeline on that? Can you just let us know?
Yes, so the committee meets the first week of May. Their recommendations will come to city council in June. And the accommodations tax committee, which we'll get to as well.
Is it possible to get that before June?
Sure,
That would-
Tina is saying
That's
yes.
gonna help us formulate some of the other decisions that need to be made so that we're prepared to financial engineer it.
I like that.
Well, and there is some additional funding available in the budget that's not committed to, so we'll go through as well, but yes,
Right.
yeah. So yes, Tina's made note of that and we'll make sure the committee is ready to make their recommendations before June.
And when is the budget first advertised?
The
June,
first meeting is the
June
public,
fifth?
yes, June 5th or 6th.
Fifth or
That's the one
sixth,
thing I
one of
didn't
those.
have in this presentation was the schedule.
We need to have it before.
Got time to noodle.
The other question Tina's reminded me about is, last year, city council urged the committee, the committee made recommendations for their full allotment. There have been some discussions where in the past, the committee held back some of the funds to make like a second round of applications. I don't think the committee wanted to do that last year, so they recommended the full allocation. Of course, that would be up to city council's consideration.
They
That would
feel
also-
that that's a better process, then, that just eliminates the discussion. This is it.
Yes. Yep, so just allocate everything.
And let me add, in the past,
Mr. Palin, can you join us at the podium?
so I do want to add, so this year, any fund balance in the current year, and Missy pointed this out, will be focused on finishing Finley Park. Depending on how the year finishes, though, we could have excess funds. That has happened multiple years, and we usually have those discussions in September, October, so.
Plenty of projects.
Some of those
don't
things
worry.
pop up after, because they will, the requests will come in. We have the potential to address some of those later on
You're saying excess for this year?
from this year, but we have to finish paying for Finley Park first, and then we'll see what the balance is then, but it's going to be tighter than past years.
And so when we have in your,
Less money. That's what tighter means.
what was that question?
Clarification on tighter.
Yes, so there'll be a good surplus, but we have committed it to finish Finley Park. So the amount left over after that has the tendency to be probably less than we've seen like last year.
But you already have a specific amount for Finley Park, and you're saying you would have an additional up to a specific amount or unlimited amount?
So when we approved the
Probably more.
contracts back in August,
August 1st.
so the total, I don't remember the exact amount off the top of my head.
22.5.
So we had a shortfall of, maybe it was
1.6 to
Oh, that's right.
2.2, depending upon the fund
So we
balance.
used 577,000 out of last year's fund balance, then we're gonna use this year's fund balance. This is actually working out good, because what we thought we were going to have to do is also use this upcoming year's budget to finish it. It looks like we won't have to do that, so that actually means there's more funds in the upcoming year to allocate out
The
to
excess would
everyone
be up
else.
to a certain amount that is needed.
Yes.
We already, right, got it, okay. Tighter.
And so what we're doing through today, of course, is just talking about the different sources of allocation from hospitality. So that's the committee and the line item agencies. We also have some city council specific allocations. One is to Parks and Recreation Foundation. Those are for events that are held really by the city but are run through the foundation. That would be the MLK celebration, the Veterans Parade, and now addition is the fireworks for New Year's. So they've asked for a little bit of an increase of 20,000, roughly about 25%. River Alliance is a long-standing contract that the city has had with River Alliance in support of work and activities at Three Rivers Greenway. The different activities that they do changes each year depending upon agreement among city staff and the River Alliance. Their funding request is $70,000. That's about a $15,000 increase. Their allocation has been, and we can provide you a copy of their request letter. I think they've been at like a 51,000 allocation from the 90s up until the early 2000s, and then in recent years it's been about 55,000. So
All right, so I had one little meeting with my fellow members of the River Alliance now. So, but there's never been a situation where we did not fund them at all. So I feel like they
Ever in
mentioned,
years?
like in a
or
year, they got.
In a recent years?
Yeah,
No,
okay, so they've always got
not in
some.
recent years.
not in recent years.
Well, maybe it was
but
non-recent years, so.
If it's
It would have been
20 years.
Yeah, a long time ago.
All right, so we've had a very
consistent.
consistent, support. Yeah, got it.
There was probably some discussion in more recent years about the level of support. I think there may be that request
My
this
guess
year.
is that was a '08
That's what I was thinking.
when times got
That was a
tough.
tough time.
There was probably some decrease across the
There a
board.
request
I
this
think
year
they
for an
get,
increase?
There is this year.
Yeah, they,
And so just for
but
my,
they also didn't go out and get other resources either.
but I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, no, just for my clarification, under other allocations, these same projects are considered under, they actually apply to the committee as well?
So several of the groups that are on the other considerations, this reflects the allocations that his city council has made. So there's a section on the budget that you have that's broken out a little more detailed. And that has fluctuated, so it's not showing really any specific allocations. If they're on there now and they show zero this year, every one of those groups that are on here outside of the foundation folks, they have requested through the actual committee. These are allocations that were above and beyond the committee's allocation, allocation made specifically by city council.
Okay.
Did we talked about, or the possibility of parades,
Yes.
but I don't think that's reflected there with that 100,000.
That's right, it does not, so that would be another one we might want to add to the list for,
And you need to do that
Future
through the
parades.
Parks and Recs.
I would prefer to. Yes, sir.
So what's that number?
We'll have a good number soon.
I mean, I would go ahead and just,
Yeah.
I'd rather us have it if we don't use it, we don't use it, which would be
Sure,
but I'd rather us allocate it and we know ahead of time.
we would appreciate that.
Yeah. So we think we'll have that number by the.
We'll have
the
that
next
number
one.
this week. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
You expecting the football team to win a national championship or something, Daniel?
and baseball.
No, but think about it. I mean, you never know you never know what could happen at USC. You don't know what's gonna happen with Benedict. When we came that close 2 years in a row of getting there, you just don't ever know. So I think planning ahead is smart on our part. And I mean, look, nobody picked the women to win.
This year.
We just had we had the wrong year.
Didn't pick up
We
win
win
just
every
last year.
year.
Every year.
Sorry.
Tina.
I'm sorry.
I thought you're tired.
I am.
She is
Missy, I appreciate you giving us the applications far in advance. That was helpful to see what they're asking the increase for the line item agencies.
We thought that would be helpful for decision making.
Discussion, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so any questions about the other allocation? The only two that we have made a projection on are those things that we know are consistent with city council's discretion. Of course, the amount is still subject to city council input and direction. And then we have, of course, some other projects and initiatives that we'll have towards the end of the conversation of the other funds as well.
Did you, maybe I missed it because I was thinking about the parade stuff, the Columbia Streams Art and Public Art Project. Did you?
Thank you for reminding, yes. So the only other two that are on here that have not, that are of question as well is the Columbia Streams Art Project and then the Public Art Project. Both have funds remaining in their current year. I don't have the amounts available for you at the exact moment. But we need direction on whether those will be considered for going forward.
We're gonna carry the balance forward
Oh,
as
yes.
it is now. And I think when we were gonna talk about line items, I think the question for me would be in that discussion is do we want to, supply, additional funding, to One Columbia on the public side of art?
So One Columbia is currently as your line item, you mean in addition to their line item agency
Because the big effort for us in that line item, and unless we're changing direction, was really focused on trying to go after grant money and create more grant opportunities for the arts community, because we just really haven't taken advantage of what's out there. And so we put that emphasis on this year, but I do believe that putting some seed money in for public art or towards a big public project, makes sense. And at the time that we chose to go through the Parks Foundation, if you recall, we didn't have a director at that time. We had an interim director that was out, and there was just a lot of confusion. I have a lot of faith in Xavier, so far from what he's shown me and his ability. So, I think that's part of why when we go into that discussion, there's gonna be a lot of discussion around it, but we ought to be thinking that we're probably gonna add some funding there. The Stream Arts program is the Trout's a one-time project to try to raise funds to help build that up and reoccur. The other project, which is the roving canvas, that gives us enough money to do this year, 24, 25 as well. Because those average projects are like 3,000 to 5,000. So that gives the Parks Foundation and Scott plenty of room for another fiscal year.
Sorry. It's a live fun.
Yeah.
Are we that boring?
It's it's that memory portion of this shows up. I hope it was a good memory.
From the sound of it, it sounds like
It was great to see too.
We needed some excitement.
We're not judging anybody.
But, I do think the one, we have to consider is
You get your
the
work done.
continuation of the extension of the city center partnership, so. Because that was specific to Hope and Order, so that'll be a discussion point, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's on the list. We have for the end of the presentation. Okay, so, then as far as the remainder of the budget, the transfer to the general fund is, still reflected at 4 million. And debt service is 2.5. Of course, that is based on the existing debt schedule. Then that leaves a remaining amount for allocation, 1,761,943. That is, of course, based on the projections that we gave you with regards to 10% to those groups, funding the special allocations as is. Of
Is
course,
that a
that number
net
will change.
number?
That's a net number. So that is uncommitted at this point. And of
So-
course, it can fluctuate based on any of the other numbers that you decide to change.
That Finley Park number's not in, what's the debt service 2538? Is that the Finley Park?
No, that's the baseball stadium.
That's the
Okay, so
existing debt.
It's really not 1761, it's 1761 minus the number Jeff said.
So fund balance, so Finley Park would come out of the fund balance we have out of the current year. This is over and above
She's
that.
saying this is what'll be left.
This is what we have not yet out, the
And she
balance
has
of the
other
budget.
things she's gonna bring, and obviously we're gonna have some, and I think there's some discussions to be had too about some future projects if we wanna start storing away towards those future projects.
Right.
One being the potential
Current
for
year.
Civil Rights Museum, and for the, possible Bethel AME and other projects that
Have
keep
it on
coming
the
up.
list. We have a list for y'all at the end.
So Mr. Britton, just to make sure it's clear, so this is separate and apart from the balance we would need for
Yeah, absolutely.
So Finley Park is this current
current year.
fiscal year.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're looking at projected numbers for next year, right?
Projected numbers based on what we have as the budget. So the total revenues for the budget, so this would give us a balanced budget. You have that much available out of next year's budget to allocate. We at this point, we're not predicting any need for the next year budget to allocate to Finley Park. We think there'll be fund balance out of the current year and some of the other,
Okay, gotcha, perfect.
yeah. So this is all from starting July 1 to June 30th of next year, what you have available to allocate. separate and apart from fund. We just not have reflected any fund.
I see it now in the
fund
amended
balance, yeah.
23, 24.
Okay, so we'll come back to that number.
Mayor,
Oh,
Yes, sir.
does that mean, Missy, that we come under budget for Finley Park?
No.
Talk to me then. Talk to me, Missy.
so Finley Park.
Within budget.
Yeah, we'll be, yeah. Finley Park, the allocation that was made for Finley Park was based on there being some fund balance from hospitality tax to complete the commitment for the contract that was awarded in August.
That's correct, yes.
So in the budget for next year, we have not programmed any additional funding for Finley Park. At this time, we are not projecting that anything is needed out of next year's budget for Finley Park.
So there is a carryover in Finley Park in terms of budget.
Out of some fund balance that will be needed to complete the Finley Park project,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
That's out of
Thank you very much.
yes, that would be out of the existing fund balance or current years.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Okay. So the amount available for allocation, that 1.7, that number will change. So based on any other changes you make to the other groups.
Okay.
So next we'll go into state accommodations tax. State accommodations is, of course, the hotel tax, and it's collected by the state. It's submitted to the city quarterly. We project a budget of about 3.4 million, which is an increase of 454,000 over the current year budget, and about 15%, which is about 15%. That's a pretty substantial increase on budget increase. However, it is really in line with prior year actuals and what we're seeing in terms of overall collections, which continue to remain pretty strong as well. The biggest sort of unknown we often have with accommodations tax is the fact that we receive those revenues from the state on a quarterly basis, and sometimes that quarter collection lags to when they come into us. But we are feeling confident about those collections to date, that we will make current year budget, and confident with our projections for next year. All right. So on the accommodations tax budget, we'll talk a little bit about how the allocation is made based on the very prescriptive descriptions that are in state law as to how the funds are to be allocated. So your budget reflects those allocations according to those calculations. The first allocation from is a $25,000 allocation directly to this general fund. That's reflected in the general fund budget. We also have 30% that is allocated towards advertising and promotion of tourism. That amount available is $1,013,000. 65% that is allocated for tourism-related expenditures. That allocation is 1.3. It really is higher, but the debt service that we'll also talk about would come from that number in terms of the eligible uses. And then that leaves $168,000, that's 5% general purposes. So combining the other part of the state law requirements is that the 30% tourism, advertising and promotions, along with the 65% allocation for tourism-related expenditures is to be made by recommendation of an accommodations tax committee. That is appointed, of course, by city council, so you have an accommodations tax committee. That group also will meet this second week of May and review those applications are due the end of this month. The total amount available for the accommodations tax committee is $2,337,000. In the past, city council has allocated, the committee has recommended, and council has supported that allocation to basically two different groups, again, as defined by state law, for It's been Lake Murray Tourism and the Convention and Visitors Bureau, as the funds are to be committed to a visitors bureau of the municipality.
So,
Go ahead.
is there anything that we're allowed to build into our agreement when we offer these dollars to the tourism groups? I ask that because as we're working on our branding refresh, I would like for folks to be intentional, especially groups that we should be aligned with in terms of how we talk about Columbia, to keep in mind out the direction that we're going. And we were very, I think, intentional about looking at all of the different kind of logos and colors and feel of everything out there. And so is there a way for us to build in that with these dollars, you know, you'll be expected to work with us
I
as
think we have to
you?
do an agreement. I think
Yeah.
you have to specify.
Is it a
the
professional
agreement.
service? Like, what is is it a
If
contract?
you make it as part of the receiving the funds.
I think you could certainly make it as a part of the grant requirements, and I don't think it's too late to incorporate something that within there. Now, they are already subject to branding that the city does provide, and that we also do the same on hospitality.
No, I'd like to be more specific.
But we could be
yeah.
more specific, especially with the updated that's coming.
It's coming tonight and
Yes.
tomorrow, as far as the public, you'll hear about that tonight. I'm actually looking at it right now, but this is right here is what you're talking about, and they need to get it as well.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Crawford's already done it for
Okay.
external stakeholders.
And as we talk about these things, one of the things I want to put out there in the future as we get to the allocations, when we have that discussion across the board, is I'd like us to see the Main Street and all these groups that we give money to put some money towards Christmas decorations
Yeah.
and to make our
Holiday.
city look like a holiday city. Is one of the biggest complaints that we got last year. And I think, you know, with some of the requests that we're getting, I think we need to allocate it and so that they can do some things from North Main all the way to Five Points to do that. But these
Vista.
are the things that we need to be thinking about as we allocate some of these fundings to make sure that not only the branding styles and all that is included, but some of these other requests that I think are important for us as a community.
And I mean, like, I know that everybody has their own brand and stuff, but I want to change the culture that like everybody does their own thing. So even just, you know, encouraging collaboration and conversation as, you know, people talk about. And I know like the Midlands competitive reports, this came up as well. Like we just have a lot of different mini stories that we're telling, and there could be a more coordinated way. So I think this could be one.
I think
way.
everybody still
But-
can have their identity.
Yeah.
But the reality is incorporating what we're doing so that it's a clean fabric.
Well, and I just wanted to say too, that I think we need to make sure we consider that on a case-by-case basis. And I don't know if right now we're talking specifically about hospitality funds, but one of the discussions that came up was the mobile food market. And I think we were gonna do some branding around that, and I was like, well, no, because I don't think that's appropriate to have the Columbia brand on it. Because we
Yeah.
don't want ownership of everything, and so that is also my concern is
But if you're
make sure you get
advertising
recognition,
for tourism
but I
dollars, I
don't-
think that's.
Yeah, I think we're
Yeah.
talking about tourism specifically.
and if we limit it,
Yeah,
that's what I wanted
like
to know.
A-tax
Yeah.
related, I'm
We're
talking
on the
about just
same page.
A-tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're on the same
But
page.
some things we
Yeah.
don't want to be the first person they call.
No, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm thinking in terms of like, what are the groups that
Wow, I
are
give
getting
your
people
number out to
here?
everybody.
And the A-tax is
I won't
basically
know.
that, so.
So there's a couple of avenues we could certainly look at with that. Tina and I can get with Ms. Wilson and her team and Jeff to talk about how to better reflect that in the, specifically the accommodations tax
Yeah.
group, since that is their job with these funds. And I know in prior conversations, they would be excited to be in that loop. And they are the sort of the brand representatives from the city to the grantees, so. And it looks
Yeah,
like
for
Jeff-
this specifically, I think I would love to see what you guys can do for that, A-tax specifically.
So
What?
I do want to make.
Positivity.
I am,
Here we
I am
go.
being
Positivity.
positive
All right, engineer.
since January 1. So I do want to remind everyone, because for some of us will be a little newer to state accommodations tax, the use of it. We can push and ask them to do the branding. When we talk about the actual marking where it's placed for tourism, we'll have to, There's under the state law, and I can't remember the exact, but it has to be something like 15 miles outside of the
Yeah,
city.
yeah.
That's
So I
fine.
just want everyone to remember that. So if
Okay.
you don't see them using the funds on a billboard, the city, or promoting a championship, it's because we cannot use those funds for that. It has to be
I don't want
a
that.
certain range.
I want
Okay.
outward.
I just want to make sure because we
outward
had a
facing, we
discussion.
need to be.
But
This
that's
is an
all.
opportunity to be more aligned.
But
Outward
yes, to
facing.
utilize the branding, absolutely.
Correct.
I think
And
we can-
that's the purpose of doing the branding and embracing it, is to make sure that it is what people 20, 30, 2 hours from here recognize.
And I think that's an easy conversation also to have. I generically would just say the convention center, because through tourism development fee, which is coming up as well, they also pay for part of their marketing through those fees as well. Those have a little more flexibility in how it's used.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tina, I know when we've had the committee meet and when the agencies have come and presented, there's oftentimes a lot of that conversation, and they bring a lot of their marketing materials with them about advertising both in the city as well as outside the city and how to sort of balance that so that folks internal to the city know what's going on as well. And we often refer folks from the Hospitality Tax Committee to remind them to point that direction as well so that they're collaborating and getting that guidance from those two tourism boards for that sort of brand recognition as well. So certainly ways to interweave it. So for today's conversation, we want to make sure City Council is has any questions or comments about that. Confirm the allocation for the State Accommodations Tax Committee.
And it's a recommendation, so we can adjust it as we see. So I want to make sure everybody understands in case we don't agree with the allocation.
Sure. I will add, though, that state law is pretty prescriptive, that any of the allocations has to be approved by the committee, even if they are city council directive. And we have to report those items up through the tourism committee, the state's tourism board as well, for subject for consideration. Which reminds me, and I also want to point out that there is still in the current year budget a holdback from city council in the current year of about $1 million that has not been allocated. And we have a time restraint on those funds by state law.
Well, I think too, with the potential events coming forward in the next budget year, especially around Finley Park and some of the other events, I think we need to hold on to it for that purpose.
How long can we have it?
2 years.
Okay. So we just need
So
to
2
send out
years as in 2 more years or 2 years as in?
One more year.
one more year.
1 more year.
Well, the current year budget reflected a lot of fund balance, so I'm saying at least committed.
Well, can you confirm that?
Yeah, we,
So what is your current thinking? When does it die?
June.
This June?
We'd like to say June.
So that means
But-
we need to allocate it by June. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
That's more than time sensitive.
we could also argue
We got
that,
enough stuff, we can,
that really that's current year
not
and
worried about that.
give it another year, but
I'm not worried about if we didn't do it.
Well, don't worry.
it's one of the few times you're going to hear us encourage allocation. But I would say too, that oftentimes what we obviously do is allocate those funds to the specific groups, but under the direction of city council guidance in terms of how they would be utilized. That's also an option that keeps us compliant with the committee process. Okay?
What kind of leeway do we have on those funds?
The leeway is that the funding is allocated for advertisement and promotion of tourism.
Same thing.
Yes, there are some other or allowances within the state law. Those are the two primary ones that are applicable to the city. And there are, as Jeff was pointing out, there are some, I think generally, it's not in this code specifically, but other references to state law about what is a tourist and how far out. Hospitality
They're
doesn't
making
have the same
changes to
restrictions, but
that, too.
accommodations, yes.
What, wider or casting or something?
Wider.
Really?
So you can create, but I mean, wider from uses, so that you're not as restrictive in it. There's a couple bills floating around,
That
so.
is at the state level.
In the future, when we get these, could y'all include the statute? in them?
Yes, we provided it, yes,
Don't be so educated.
it was in the retreat materials, but we can provide it again. With state accommodations tax, much like how the city does with hospitality tax, we have state law, and then there's also guidelines from the Turk Committee, from the state's Turk Committee. And so in this case, there's state law, and then there's guidelines which we can provide. We did not provide those during the retreat, but we can provide the TURC committee guidelines as well. We have to do specific reporting for them as well.
Howard wants to see where the gray areas are.
I didn't say that.
Accommodations tax is a lot more prescriptive, as we say, than hospitality, and certainly more prescriptive than the next fund, which would be, to move this along, the tourism development fee, local accommodations tax. This is the same collection source, however, this one is collected specifically by the city. And so we have, as you all may recall, we have not typically allocated these funds because previously they were allocated all towards the convention center through the contracts. Now that we are in a different relationship, these funds are coming to City Council for consideration. We have projected a budget of $4,795,000, which is about a 19% increase. Again, the fluctuation is based on the fact that this is now a single source of revenue, whereas before we were it was combined from other entities.
So are you saying we do not have a specific dollar relationship with the convention center?
Yes, no, we do.
Not yet. So Jeff has,
Not a specific dollar, but we gotta figure out what their loss factor is and all of that, because we're on the hook, which is a further discussion for us down the road about how to reconstitute that authority and redo an agreement along with the county, so it's a more equitable split, because right now we're the bulk.
so as Mayor's saying, that's really the fluctuation there. In current year, you allocated 2,750,000 to the
We're not
Convention Center
under,
Experience
we're not
Columbia.
under a specific dollar amount as per the previous agreement, right? Or we
It's
are?
not a specific dollar. Right, Jeff?
Correct. So,
Percentage?
For the prior 20 years, ending last year, every single dollar that we collected, every single dollar that Lexington County and Richland County collected, all came to, we held it all in trust, basically, for everyone. First thing we did is we had to pay debt service. Each year, that was about $2.6 million. Everything after that went to the convention center to pay for operations, for marketing, fixtures, pretty much everything. That all ended this past year. So now, I will remind everyone, we do actually own the convention center as the city. We have a 50-year, I think it is, agreement for the group that basically manages all of it. So they do generate revenues there, and maybe it'd be good for us to, but they don't generate enough to cover all their costs. They
We're
do,
negative, that's not
they
generated.
do a lot of marketing that is
do
very
generate, they don't
beneficial for the
generate
city. There's a lot of positives on them. I'm not here to promote the convention center though, but they're working on their budget now. So it might be beneficial for us to bring that to y'all before.
yes, that's where I'm going. So
Yes.
Last year, going into this, I'd only been in office for like 2 weeks. Okay, so, but where I come from, if you lose $3 million a year, you should be stressed. Okay, that's all I'm saying, and
I
you
would
should
be.
have, I would be. So all I'm saying is I would like a more fundamentally sound picture of how the convention center operates than I had last year.
And we can talk with Bill and his staff. I am sure they will be more than happy to come and talk about their
I think so,
budget.
too. Yeah.
And I think the other question too, is it from opportunities lost? I've had two times this week, I've had different people wondering why we couldn't have certain things here in Columbia and explaining capacity issues.
Well,
I mean, that's assuming that's true.
Right, but it just, this week I had to explain to them why we couldn't have certain things
Well, I
here.
mean, there's certain groups that will never have enough capacity for, they're just too large.
Right,
And you're not gonna build something for one or two groups that,
That's
but
true.
it's very interesting, but a lot of the groups, when you dig down into the weeds and you talk to them, it's the hotel rooms that they don't have. It's
Well,
not the
that's-
space.
well, that's part of that discussion too. I mean, I
Or-
said both of them.
Or I could make an argument that I don't know if it's valid or not, because I've never seen anything that says there's just certain things you're not gonna get here no matter what.
Well,
So,
all I could say is that being in Austin, Texas and hearing the mayor tell the story about the convention center. As we're sitting in the convention center hotel, and he's like, everybody wanted us to expand the footprint of the convention center. And he said, when we got into the weeds, to realize there wasn't enough hotel rooms, so we built a hotel first, and then we expanded it, and then we expanded it again, because then all the other hotels came, and it was the seed. And I was like, could you repeat that story in Columbia for me?
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument
I agree with
that the hotels are an issue. I would say there's the second argument about what happens next.
Jeff, for tourism development fees, are there guide rails on what we can specifically spend the funds on, like for qualified expenditures? I mean, can you sign a capital lease for
Aquatic center?
additional meeting space to boost the local economy stuff? I mean, what do we have as far as, because there's obviously some guide rails with the last pool
Yeah.
accommodations.
So there are, under the local accommodations tax, there are, the state has guidelines on that. It's very similar to state accommodations tax.
The biggest difference is the fact that we don't have a committee requirement.
Yeah.
Council decision.
Yes. And we do receive the financials from the from both the tourism agencies through the accommodations tax.
And it's kind of a growing process. When we first, as a city, passed tourism development fee in the 1990s, it was really meant to be us and others were collecting it for the purpose of the convention center. So that had always been the focus. Then in the 2000s, the state updated, I don't know if they passed it or updated local accommodations tax and the uses for it. I don't think we had a huge focus on that because all the dollars always went to pay debt service into convention centers. So I can get with Michael Season and them as well, just so that we can revisit the exact uses of it, because we have had them take a look, because we do use, if you look further down, is this the right budget? We're paying debt service for Finley Park out of here for 6 more years.
And we also have city ordinance as to how these are directed, which.
Where's the debt service is the million?
So debt service in current year is $1 million budgeted, but we revised it, the actual, based on the schedule for next year, is $972,000. So that's the debt service for this portion. It's the debt service, full debt service for the Finley Park revitalization is spread across multiple funds.
Going back to the convention center, do we want to just have them make a report to the economic development?
No, they need to do it at the council.
All council.
Well, and I think that's kind of where I was going. If we own it, how are we managing it?
I know, we're not.
Because I think we do make appointments. Do
You
we
gotta
make the
understand, they
appointments?
don't make money.
We know that.
But none of them do. And so the real question really becomes is, as we take these next phases, the ability to build a hotel on site, get some more meeting space, utilizing the footprint that we have to then conquer and then look long-term, I think, in understanding. But I think the agreement has to, because we're 70% of it, and the county's 30% roughly, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So having a more robust discussion, with them and understanding, and then having a conversation with our county partners, how can we partner better in it? Because we're absorbing, I think this past year, we put 5 million in it, right? Roughly,
Between the two.
Between the two.
between the two pots.
2.7 out of this budget, and then the other $1 million out of the, was it 2.7?
So, yeah, I think in total we spent $5,100,000. I don't think anyone else has spent even, within their budget, they can show you all of the funding sources that come from all the partners, because you'll still have West Columbia, the town of Lexington and others. They do contribute small amounts to them
$5,000
as
and
well,
$10,000.
but we're by far the 90% of the funding.
But I think that's part of the overall discussion too. This is a driver for the Midlands. It's very important for Richland County and the city. So I think having further discussions, but I do agree we ought to have them come first, kind of give us a preview of the budget, allow us to ask questions, and then for us then to have a deeper dive about how do we make this a more equitable relationship.
We absolutely can set that up.
I also don't think it's about whether they make money or lose money. It's about the purpose that the convention center serves, and it's about future investment and then future purpose. So it's really,
Well,
it's not
and
about.
utilizing the space to its best
Right, that's what
ability,
exactly,
not just to fill it.
Right, we're not here, right, and so the answer is, there's two ways you lose money. One, you got too much cost, and the other one, you don't have enough revenue, so, or both. So the question is, are they losing money under the right circumstances, would be my question.
And when we say they're losing money, their marketing budgets are huge. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. So that'd be,
And then we go to, so again.
so that's still promoting the area. That'd be like, we don't get, there's an indirect return from what they're spending out there on promoting Columbia.
I think what Mr. Brown was trying to say, he wants to make sure that our investment is actually paying off.
And I'm sure they'll be more than happy to come in.
And so by the marketing, are you saying that a lot of their marketing dollars are spent on bringing people to Columbia, period?
Yes.
Not necessarily for the convention center?
Yes.
There's only one of him.
More than happy. Not just happy, more than happy.
Yes, absolutely.
Tina and I were just rejecting, they normally, obviously, when they present to the committee, they also provide the same kind of information. But now with the introduction of the tourism development fee, a conversation directly with council might be equally warranted, so. So this one, again, there's no specific direction at this point, although we will point out that the current year budget included some funding for marketing and promotions. City Council allocated a total of $700,000 across multiple funds in the current year, so this is a portion of that. We haven't reflected anything yet, pending additional conversations as to where we are, both with remaining funds from this year and direction that Ms. Wilson will be talking to you about soon.
Yeah.
All right. The last special revenue fund is our liquor permit rebate. We're bringing it forward in part because it does provide an opportunity for some other funding sources. The projected budget is rather small compared to the other funding sources. It's roughly about $438,000. That's a big reduction from the current year budget, but that's because the current year budget reflected the fund balance of $1.8 million, which was the collection of several years of
4 or 5.
Right, of unallocating these funds. Historically, the city has utilized these for primarily to fund capital projects and other restoration projects from historic Columbia for repairs of the city's two historic homes. And so that's what the allocations are for this year, as well as an allocation to Gemini Studios upfit. So at this point, the budget reflects available of $438,000. We do have a couple of requests that have come through regarding some historic properties, none of which are specific dollar amounts at this point, but know that they are being considered. So when they do come forward, they would be considered here. There are some other eligible uses for liquor permit rebate, but they are also restrictive as well. We can provide those to you as well.
We're not spending any money on beach renourishment.
We're not spending money on beach renourishment, that is true.
This one's still.
We thought Finley Park beach renourishment might work, but it didn't quite fit. And the city has some historic homes too but we've done restorations to Keenan already.
I'll be working on those historic homes when my daughter gets married this fall.
Make sure Historic Columbia knows that. Actually, that work is underway right now. So
Saw it.
Or you could be like our local architect and import a whole plaza from Italy to be put in the
Saw
lawn.
that. That's why I went there to see it.
I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Did you go?
To the wedding?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, maybe you got invited. I
No,
didn't.
but we saw it, spend a week setting it up.
Yeah, I know. I
6
went
tractor trailer
I
loads.
went by there to check it out.
He's a big front yard, just put a tent out.
I wish I
We
could.
clearly have been overpaying him in the past, and Robin has not been asking him for enough money.
I wish, actually, our wedding may be very similar to the convention center. Running a deficit.
I hope your daughter's not watching this on YouTube.
I was thinking that.
so moving on.
Won't even budge her, trust me.
So most of what you all have discussed today with regards to some other projects are listed here, but I think I did hear one or two that maybe wasn't listed. So some of these are items that have come up from conversations with Ms. Wilson or through council, through emails, through a couple of different methods. Some of them are continuations from prior years. We've not put projected amounts. Two of the projects actually also submitted applications to the hospitality tax program, but we mention them here because they are, they have some significance to the city in terms of city operations, so maybe city council wants some additional considerations. Plus, it would lessen the burden on what the committee would have to consider for allocations.
I would kind of capture a few of them, maybe the first two is a signature event. So even if the organizer may have put in a committee request, like number 2, I just at least wanted y'all to be aware of it because I think you're gonna probably hear about it. I think there's an effort underway to do maybe a scaled down version, but the intent is to incorporate, even from meeting with, former organizers of Three Rivers Music Festival to really maintain the integrity of it, to do something revamped, but probably scaled down, and to try to continue it going forward.
We should be putting 1 and 2 together then, because you're gonna end up trying to do 2 different events that are very similar.
Well, I mentioned this to the organizer when asked because they were looking for some direction, but I suggested that they go ahead and at least, get their application in without me knowing. I think the time frame for Finley Park reopening may be a little bit different than the time frame they were thinking, but not too far off, so.
I mean, I would just say from the songwriter, what they're creating is a singer-songwriter Hall of Fame here in Columbia. And part of it was to create a music festival out of that. So on Friday night, there'd be a gala event where people were inducted and, obviously their ideas, certain songwriters and bands from South Carolina get inducted on, and then Saturday, Sunday, there's concert series. But if Three Rivers is gonna there's not enough room for 2. We ought to try to figure out how to put them together.
Yeah.
And because the organizers of that have put on Monday After the Masters and all these other major events, so they know how to do it. So it may be a good fit.
Well,
Wait,
I'd rather do that than have competing interests for the same pot of money and we don't get either one off the
right.
ground.
Well, I think they're open to, thank you, Elizabeth, open to that.
When are we gonna learn more about the Three Rivers Music Festival application?
It's
Actually in the committee. It's in consideration for the committee.
The HTAX committee?
Yes. And so is the songwriter series. Both of those are applications in the HTAX committee.
which is why we wanted, not that we're trying to call out anything
Right.
from the committee process, but I do think these are somewhat more signature events and maybe had crossovers, so we wanted y'all to be aware so that if there's any guidance to be given.
Well, and I think it's important that they go through the committee even if they don't get the funding sources needed because they've gone through the process. And I think for us, that's always been the best way because,
Yeah.
we can make an adjustment based on some of the other needs we have.
There's a request in from the town theater, but it's a capital request for $100,000. And we don't have to get into detail of these, but I just.
I've got some of the numbers for some of the other ones that have been given to me, so I can share those with Missy so that when we do talk about the projects, we have an idea of what the costs are.
I mean, for number 5 to go on there, that's more of a EDD, that needs to stay kind of, Mayor mentioned Bethel Church, AME restoration, not sure if there's any connection there with Historic Columbia potentially.
My understanding is Historic Columbia now is the holder of that property. And so, I think there's still $400,000 sitting around. Obviously, this is a project that's been going on forever and ever. But I think it would be interesting to tie that in, because we don't have the civil rights, research and museum center up there, which I just got all the information today from.
That's separate, that wouldn't be tied into the Bethel.
No, but it fits in the bigger picture as you think about the possibility of the civil rights tourism trail that we've been talking about. No, they're not, they're separate, correct.
Okay.
But we don't have it up there either. I think we ought to add it for discussion
Yeah,
purposes.
we talked about it, but I think I wasn't sure, so. Capture it as civil rights tourism trail, maybe.
Yes, ma'am.
And so someone is, and I guess I should know, but actively continuing to work on the restoration of Bethel AME.
Well, it's at a standstill, and that was the conversation I had with Dr. Donaldson today and others, so,
Do they still have like their foundation?
yeah, well, they took that away because of issues that were preventing them from moving forward. They did, they have protected all the windows and all that, but it's still a significant project. That's something that needs to be considered.
As you tell to the grandchild.
Yeah.
I'll put this
And
on my radar now.
And for us, radar, there's a little bit of conversation around the future of the penny to include possible beautification financing for cleanup and others, from my understanding.
Or true litter and beautification?
That would actually make a lot of sense.
That'd be great.
And
Make a lot of sense.
apparently, I guess there's gonna be some more dialogue tonight, but not in depth. But I do think this might be a time for us to sit down with our counterparts at the county and really dig down. I'm a still believer in that we need to push for roads and sidewalks and the beautification piece. But think about if we had folks like they have on the highway that spend all their days cleaning up our entranceways and all that. I mean, it would really reflect great on us as a county.
Pride in our
to have
county and our city, yeah.
entranceways and our main thoroughfares free of trash and
Or just donut holes,
may not,
county donut holes, that would be a big step.
Yeah. This is a great point.
there's
No
just a
shade.
few of those.
No shade.
Obviously, one of my main priorities is the continuation with our lunch and the city marketing and promotions, which we have obviously some funds to carry forward. There's the, I think want to make sure all the council's aware of the 2 video productions potentially that were funded last. I think it was out of this pot of funds, or was it separated out?
So there was a $700,000 towards those different things and the one allocation for the video productions was part of that funding, but we don't have an award for them yet on that, so we need to make some.
But that's
Yeah,
the 175.
Correct. That was part of that.
We gotta
So it's
carry
budgeted
that-
for, but there's not been any activity on
Is
it.
your intent to carry that over and use that in conjunction with the marketing and the promotions?
I need to make sure I'm clear that we're understanding what the intentions are. So there is the Dennis Quaid video, that is moving forward and
That's
was,
happening Saturday.
right, so was that part of this?
It was, I think it came out of that budget. 42,000 came out of that, I think it came out of that budget.
Okay, so there was that one that came up, and then there was the potential for another one, which I think now the thought is to have that focused with the Black Wall Street production. Is that right? I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear on what they
I think
are.
originally, remember, we were talking about creating the series that we could use for marketing, but based on, with what we're doing with the refresh and all the branding, I think, pushing that more towards Black Wall Street and the history makes a lot of sense. Because that could then tie in to the potential of the trail, but I think we were holding off on everything, if I remember our last discussion about that, until the marketing piece was launched and so forth, so we could see how that would coincide with that. Cause that was $175,000 that we specifically put away for a project. And that came out of tourism dollars, if I remember.
So but there were two original thoughts, the Dennis Quaid, which is underway, and then there was another thought about a series. And I was suggesting yes until we get to this point with our marketing consultants, so things are consistent in the messaging, not to bring in another
I
person.
agree with that.
Okay, although he is now prepped and ready, and we just need to communicate that, I think, to him that we would prefer him to use those same funds. I'm just trying to make sure there's not expectation that there's an additional allocation from this pot. Okay, so he would now be directed to focus on the Black Wall Street production.
Which I think makes the most sense.
Okay, and OBO is a part of that as well. Okay,
I mean, that, at least, and I think we were waiting to communicate kind of more details until we knew,
Yes.
because we wanted to make sure the branding stuff was tied to that as well.
okay, sounds good.
But funding reserve, but we did not have anything committed, so this works out fine. There hasn't been a letter of commitment to them for the other project anyway.
Right, no, we allocated it, but we never committed to a specific project.
It's kind of been in hold.
Okay, so that's good. And then that kind of leads me into the Riverfront Park with MBLG, and we're kind of waiting on some clarity from them on what they're trying to do. My understanding, like an umbrella marketing campaign of the
They wanna create,
river.
yeah, where they have all the entities, West Columbia, Lexington
Counties.
County, Richland County, everybody buy into it. But one of the things that we specifically had told them is that we are going through that marketing campaign, and that we need to have some conversation. I have not seen anything yet from them other than the request, which I have portrayed as we got the request, we're going through the budget, but we need to see detail.
And was there a number in that request?
They put 100,000 in it. But my question is what are the other
Per
entities?
entity or?
Well, that's
Okay,
my question. Because it looked like to me we were 50% out of 6 organizations.
okay.
23 miles
I
of
put an
riverfront?
edit there for
27.
MB.
What do we, 11 of it, 12 of it?
Maybe 7.
And then, of course,
More than that.
Once, from Granby all the way to Saluda would be
Mayor, you want to talk about the aquatic center or?
So we have gotten a request, the old school site off Farrow Roads, 14 acres. It has been approached us, I mean, this is the second time folks have come to us, but they came very prepared with an outlook at an aquatic center to draw tourism, but taking advantage of building multiple pools for therapy, everything else. But part of that being also looking at the other property to maybe build either soccer or utilization fields that could be soccer, lacrosse, whatever, essentially so that we can draw some of this travel ball and these swim tournaments and everything else here that we're not getting here now. There is a group, they just worked with Huntsville, Alabama, and several other cities. They come in and they'll help you take a look at it from a cost structure, what it's gonna cost, how many events you need to do to make sure that you generate enough income for the maintenance and everything, which is the key. Similar projects are somewhere between 15 and 24 million, depending on how vast and how you build it. This could be the shot in the arm in that area to really boost some economic development.
Whereabouts on Farrow Road?
It's past our place off Gurney. I'll get a map site. My question, they're working with the school board to attain the land yet.
Across the street. Yes, right off I-20.
But my question to council is that, this might be something, this where we would partner, and why it's interesting. Columbia College needs a new aquatic center, so they may participate in it, so you could make a collaborative effort to build this. This would be a standalone, this wouldn't be a city park. The question comes, do we want to participate and getting the professional study done so we can really look at it.
Yeah, I
Sports,
would.
it's about $25,000 to do that.
Pretty good investment. So where,
Farrow,
you said Farrow Road.
North Main.
Did I say Farrah?
You did.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay. No wonder I got.
you confused Peter.
You did, because that's my area, and then you come back with North Main, and then I
Yeah,
was
and I
like,
was like,
that's
no,
not what
it's
I heard, so scratching out Farrow Road.
I wanna make sure we're,
So North Main where?
It's old Sanders.
It's the school district's
No, it's
property
off
that.
Farrah, right? Oh, now y'all got me confused.
No, it's on North Main Street.
Sanders is.
Sanders is on, Alita. And then there's the wooded area, which is the Richland School District
Right.
property. And then there's the school, which is behind the wooded area.
So if I was going
In the
down
neighborhood.
North Main, and,
It's the old site that got torn down.
That's part of it. Cause that's not 14 acres.
yeah,
so if I
we
get
need
to
to
the,
clarify what, that's why I wasn't
The
trusting
fire
yesterday
truck?
on what site.
Our fire
Uh-huh.
station,
I
right
got
off
myself
I-20.
confused now. I have them, I
yeah,
have to find
okay,
them now.
so yours
Right
Yeah,
after the
on
fire station on
pretty
I-20.
far down then,
Yeah.
North Main.
Then you gonna make it
Yeah.
right, come off the highway.
It's close
Okay,
to
I got you, all
I-20,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
North
By the
Main near I-20,
our
okay.
fire station.
I would like to see an option with that under Parks and Rec, not fully private. I just think it would be easier for us long-term. I mean, I like the idea. I think it's something needed, but I worry sometimes about long-term sustainability of these public-private partnerships when a private partner wants to walk away on something like this, if it's truly an investment to the area. So just in the study, I would like to see that factor considered.
Is the site, once we lock down the site for sure, and I wanna make sure it's in the city limits.
It is.
That's your district.
It's in Greenview.
Maybe county.
Well, no, the other side, that's Store 21 Terrace, which will forever be in the county. Forever. But the other side, between A. Dix and Greenview Plaza.
We'll track it down.
Anyway, conceptually, once we nail down this, y'all got me now more confused.
I will tell you though,
Because there's two 14-acre sites out there, and one of them's privately held, and one of them's,
you wanna do a study because there's a real science
The
to
old
this.
Sanders is
to
still
this
owned by the
club.
school district.
yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, and they're reaching out.
In the school, they're right next to it, the woods right in front of the school.
Rock Hill
and the
is a good
school.
model, but
The
about
whole-
that.
No, the
It's
one
interesting
in
though, 'cause,
Raleigh
you know,
is better.
There's not enough
I
room.
sold the soccer club that property off of Monticello Road. That was my dad's property and his buddies from like 1970, they owned that whole area over there. And I'm just telling you, they're weird places where these things work and where they don't work.
Well, so these guys, this
That's what I'm
is a
saying, that's why
sports
you
company,
have
this
to
is
do.
all they
yeah,
do.
You have to do a study. You cannot, there's a science to this,
And
business.
will they look into the hotel aspect that we were talking about too, having the capacity?
They do everything. They've done Panama City Beach. I mean, they've got a whole process. This is what these guys do. I met them at the US Conference of Mayors, but
We need to get down.
yeah, before you embark on a project like that, having somebody really analyze and say, here's the worst case, best case. And the objection, I mean, the objective in this is really to generate enough funding to keep it state-of-the-art and upkeep, because that's the most expensive part. And we learned that at the Drew Center. I mean, when we originally budgeted for the Drew Center, we budgeted $250,000. It cost a lot more than $250,000, so.
Did you
Drew Wellness,
to build it?
no, to maintain it,
Um,
cost more like $1 million.
that's different, all right?
But I think we can put some numbers around here and look at it, but I think that's a pretty good list. I know we got another request today, which I don't know, Will, you spoke to CMFA? They said they talked to you. The letter I got today said
Then the
they're
barricades
asking for
going down
funding
Main
for
Street.
something.
That's what I was saying.
Art space or something.
CMFA?
Yeah,
I'll have to follow
I
up.
don't want them, they're talking about bollards that pop up when we're talking about barricades. So the bollards are listed, but I meant Verdal, so, which will add so that you know the distinction, there was always the bollards discussion that we've maintained and kept on here, and we would like to get those. But, just based off Sunday, for example, we really have to have barricade, like the bike racks going all the way down Main Street the next time.
Scary.
It was, everything was fine, but we
Two
just need
people
to make
mentioned
the
that to me today,
investment.
saying that we really needed to have extra barricades for that situation, that it got out of hand.
The bike rack, it would be like what you saw on the State House grounds, Chief, is that correct, Harold? We would implement those all the way down.
Can we get more money
The
for?
bollards
wheels on those?
are what, Clint, you wanna describe the bollards? They
Those
would
come out of the
pop up
ground.
out the ground.
They're either retractable or sockets that you can place.
The retractable, that's what we talked about for 5 Points in some areas, especially, that can deal with flooding, but also Main Street, so that we didn't have to have our officers' cars and everything on each intersection. They could just pop them up and down, necessary to let people in and out.
So are we talking about the bollards now, or you want to wait and come back to that? As we,
So the conversation from that last year really stemmed around the fact that there needed to be a concerted conversation with city staff and direction in terms of where a bollard would be put in, what types of bollards, the different locations for the bollards. So, and then the funding was sort of redistributed a little, so I think we're coming.
Well, we put $1 million
but-
originally.
and then we
cut
sliced it
down to
up.
500.
Right.
so is the 500 still waiting to be spent?
Yes.
Okay, so it's in the bank.
But it needs some direction, yes.
Okay.
And so the question becomes really, do we try to go to some of those prone areas, especially like Blossom Street and others, to keep people
Yeah,
driving
no, I
through?
agree. I thought it was a timing thing for the 5 Points renovation, to put them in at the same time, the bollards down there, was the conversation we had a year ago.
That, and then some places, conversations about bollards, some places about
And
like.
Saluda Avenue
Some
and-
were maybe like the Main and Whaley where it's an arm that comes down, so there's been different
We have the-
conversations.
Yeah, we have the rollout there now.
Yeah.
So the money's there for last year. The conversation is, do we do the other half of it?
And we need to, I think we've gotta, do you have didn't y'all tell me an estimate on barricades off the top of your head, swag? Another 500,000.
That's for
And the
the,
bollards, 10 grand each roughly for the electronic.
Really? That's not bad.
No, I didn't think it was bad.
so how far can we
That's
go on
more,
the?
But an intersection would require multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I said, they're
yeah.
10,000 each.
Yeah.
For one
Yeah.
one bollard and
Each.
one intersection would require about,
Can we get,
No, but you wouldn't do it on all four
No.
intersections. On Main Street, you would do it.
Right.
But we think about the resources that we put on each corner for every event. You don't have to have every vehicle out there if you have bollards.
so how do we start moving that already funded all-years program forward?
so I think some of it is the direction for staff in terms of and then the available.
What I'm
funding.
hearing is they want the bike racks first over the bollards.
No, listen, you're gonna have a hospitality village, not very far from here, that's gonna be ringing off the chain if we don't get them the bollards we promised them 2 years ago. And we funded it, so that's all I'm saying.
So what's the,
Yes,
Yeah.
you said it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pro bollards
are
for
we
5 Points.
clear from staff perspective on the actual location though, and then the timing of with the work that's underway?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, we've given some specs to DOT for it to be included in the project for 5 Points. So we'll follow up with them, Mr. Brennan.
But if you're
Is that
saying,
the only location? Maybe that's what Mr. Brennan's trying to clarify too, because that part could
That's all we have money for.
What?
but the only two locations, Ms. Wilson, we were talking about was Main Street and 5 Points. It sounds like we probably might be able to get it done for the $500,000 we've already set
just for
aside.
just the 5 points.
Well, I'm not talking about the new parade investment.
No, I'm saying is it 500,000 for 5 Points bollards and 500,000 for Main Street bollards?
That was a general number, I believe.
The general number of.
Well, originally it was
dollars.
$1 million, you remember, and we toned it down.
I know we toned it down, but I wanna know what toning it down
Way of saying that
means, yeah. Is that still cover the infrastructure for both
How
locations.
many did y'all project for 5 Points?
So, again, the 5 Points were to be included in the DOT project. As we specify those, there'll be some back and forth there into whether or not they had the full funding for the retractable bollard or not.
Yeah.
We threw an estimate out there without knowing, are they traffic rated, are they retractable, are they sockets, and we put them, so.
Need to be traffic
Just-
rated.
Yes, sir. Crash rated into what level and that sort of thing. All that impacts the cost and exactly where you put them. If they're retractable or they're storm drains and utilities underneath. So there's a lot of layers to it. We threw some money out there to have a placeholder, basically, is what we
So
have.
how many and how much? is the
So
question?
we were, the answers to all those questions.
Curtin, I get it. but-
So I think
Guesstimate.
we can do Main Street, and we'll probably end up sharing a little bit of cost for 5 Points as well with the 500. But we got to map out exactly where we want to put them.
So you think we can possibly do both with the 500,
It
depending on what we get from DOT?
depends on what comes out of DOT. I don't think
Well,
they
that's
had
better
envisioned
prognosis
crash
than
rate.
I
It's
thought.
possible. So we can get you some better numbers next week if that's helpful, and then that can inform the final decision of do we.
And then we need to budget somehow through this discussion, the additional bike racks so that we have them in hand, ready for, probably gonna use those more often than we think.
Yes, absolutely.
We definitely.
Can we get more on the rental market for those?
I don't know, I mean, we probably would have used them at Finley right now versus what we had to pay to have the contractor when we were staging.
Well, they would have been too low.
Mhm.
They've been too low for Finland.
Camera towers up.
Can you assign?
Yeah.
Bike rack.
Yeah,
Just so
I
people
thought this
can
was
climb
how it
over
works.
towers.
but there will be reasons for them, for sure, outside of just a
And we,
parade.
we think that's a $500,000,
And the music festival,
but they rent those, right? I mean, they would rent those.
we would invest,
No,
oh,
the
but,
music festival or whoever would rent that stuff.
Yes.
Well, we would add that to the list.
I mean, they have to rent fencing every other city to do a concert and stuff like that. It's not provided.
well, as part of the special events
Yeah,
package, if we had them and we weren't using them for something.
makes sense.
But,
So
okay.
how many
so we'll
racks
come
is
back.
that? Do we know?
To go all the way down Main Street.
I think we can do that pretty easily, just do the math,
A lot.
Because those things aren't but like 6 feet long, right?
Future
I
parade.
would say like 8 feet long, probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. What happened?
trailers.
But going back to 5 Points
Yeah.
though, so obviously this is, since we're already working in 5
You
Points,
too.
we don't wanna finish 5 Points only to start over in 5 Points, right?
Like the metal
Right,
period.
so we wanna try to figure
It's-
this out sooner rather than later.
Double dollars locations called out on the DOT plans.
Okay, alright,
Yeah,
so,
we've asked, they know that, yeah. I was just trying to make sure
I
that,
mean, I know there's different reasons for bollards, so I can still remember 10 years ago, I think Joe Taylor and I were in Europe together, and, you go to a city and they just, a traffic area becomes a pedestrian area real quick, and a bunch of bollards go, and that's it.
right,
And to be honest with you, I mean, I would like to see 5 Points become a pedestrian area at some point at night,
Does it say bullet? It
and not a car area.
That was.
Watch out, Richard will come after you for that.
I don't care, he can give my cell phone, so, ain't no problem.
Just did parade fencing.
But yeah, so anyway.
See, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at the.
okay.
You can join, you can get on board.
So I just want to make sure on the aquatic center, it's funding of 25,000 for a study.
Yeah, I don't think that we can, I mean, we need to have the study to understand and the other partnerships coming to the table. I know that Columbia College and some other groups, this US Swimming about having a centralized location. Because the only thing they can use now, and it's limited, is the aquatic center at the university.
What about, do we not wanna try to partner with Richland County Recreation on this? they're gonna say it. I mean, the first thing out of their mouth's gonna be like, why aren't we part of this?
Well, because
Do
their
they have
track
one?
record's so stellar.
That's the past. All right, I'll let you, I'll forward the text from Rob Levine to you on this.
I've talked to him about it. I mean, he gets it.
Okay. I'll tell him to take care of Lindsay first, and then we'll move on.
But, I mean, bringing everybody to the table, I just don't think we want them to own and operate.
I didn't say that.
They're buying
I
a
said be-
sewage center for $7 million.
I said be part of the study.
I mean, it may be an option of looking at all potential partners, and I think maybe just to look at them.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't.
As well
I
as
just
different
don't want, I
locations
don't
too.
think we want them to.
Well, okay, well, that's what
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like the study is going to tell you, because I'm just telling you, I've been to enough clubs,
Compare
I've come to a lot of
locations.
weird locations for club soccer. I mean, you'd be like some industrial park, and next thing you know, there's just huge club soccer fields, and that's exactly what we did at,
Well, this
Monticello Road.
location being
I
near.
mean, you would never know there's soccer fields behind all that stuff at, I-20 and that, frontage
Can
road.
you,
I
y'all
mean, we
go
sold like
back
12
to
acres,
those,
back
go
there.
back
I mean, it's just,
your
you go in
slides
between
with
buildings to
your
get there.
slides.
So,
I
anyway,
can't
Can
find
she,
it.
Missy,
I'll take you there.
can you go back?
Like, I'm directionally challenged a couple of times. I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Kind of back around.
Okay, so this is kind of what we knew. Are there any others that we're not including? Anything else y'all can think of that?
The question comes up for Civil Rights Museum and Research Center. But I mean, some of these projects, to be honest with you, probably could be in 25, 26, 24, 25. But I do think we ought to be thinking ahead as we're talking about future allocations and fund balances and other stuff.
I think there's agreement though, I guess, from my perspective, as far as internal city needs. The Christmas lights, somehow addressing that, that seems to be.
Decorations.
Don't we have decorations that go down Main Street during the holidays?
So, and is the goal to have consistent? Or
Yeah,
is the
that's
goal
what I'm
for everyone to
saying.
do their own kind of thing?
I think we wanna have all our districts to have decorations up.
Consistent?
I think it makes sense if there's,
And is this
All
us
we have to do
buying
is put
additional
some
decoration,
clear
or is
lights
this
in the
us
trees, really, at a
acquiring
minimum, but.
partners to
Well,
contribute
Victoria hates.
something towards
well,
decorations?
we're giving all of them money.
One North.
So
So what we
requirement.
want them to,
We've
is a
talked with
requirement to
her,
take a
and
portion
I'm
of that.
hoping that we
And
would
I told
have,
Spruce up for Christmas. I mean, I tried to get them to
Okay.
put Christmas trees out last year with just lights on it,
Turned
to
down the
create some
invitation for
atmosphere.
one.
We did.
I love her.
On the side of City Hall, and it looked
Yeah.
awesome. But that
But
was like,
think about if you had
I know, but it'd be
4-foot
nice to
trees
have it all the way down, yeah.
Main.
have some type of gateway in the Columbia College that is complementary to everything else. So I think again, it's some of the discussion is, I'm just trying to get direction. You want us to potentially have some funding that the city utilizes, but if there are partners like City Center Partnership, who has typically would have
They have a
been there,
source, right.
you know, and then what they've got going on there now, I mean, that needs.
Well, I think the bigger discussion with them is they're looking for permanent lighting that the foundation wants to pay for, so. But I think they still got to enhance with some Christmas stuff. It can't just be the lights, because we can't afford to put lights up everywhere.
Okay.
Can I ask you something real quick, Ms. Wilson?
Sure.
What, under city beautification, in your
Yeah, I
mind,
was
what is
gonna-
that? What's that entail?
So I wanted to continue and expand upon the programs we've started, where we have dedicated teams and sweeps in the main corridors. I mean, from your perspective, Clint, with Robert, do you want to speak to that, what we're trying to do, but we need dedicated funding
Absolutely.
ongoing
Okay.
to consistently accomplish that.
So I think a lot of how we've used the funding that we've gotten so far and how we plan, the rest of the plan for this fiscal year is contract mowing. We're adding 2 more corridors. North Main and Fairfield Road to the mowing contract. So our folks aren't doing the mass mowing. We've got contractors doing that. We've certainly got our litter and edging crews that are doing their work on the corridors. We've done several beautification planting projects around the city. And I've got a breakdown of how we spent every one of these dollars or what the
We share
plan
that.
is. Yes,
I think,
sir.
I think we do a good job of the actual, like, the plantings and the beautification.
Yes, sir.
Stuff that's supposed to be not on our plate,
Right.
that is
Trash.
the most
And
frustrating.
the medians and the.
Trash, the mowing of the
Weed
corridors
killing.
that really aren't, ours.
We know and leave the trash there. So
And let me ask you a question,
You don't like that?
A lot of that's DOT.
on that subject,
Yeah,
let's say you're in an
that's
area like
nice.
Golden Acres, where they have all these ditches, and it looks like there's a water sewage pipe right there. Can those be closed up?
Those are DOT ditches.
Those are DOT ditches?
That entire neighborhood's DOT roads.
And they make.
That's why
they're supposed to maintain.
I've been trying to help them and maybe Chris can help with that, but that's,
So anytime I'm thinking about any neighborhood where I see a ditch like that, is that usually a DOT ditch?
no, not
It
necessarily.
just depends. If
You
it's,
gotta look for the road sign.
depends on who owns the road is usually the person that owns the ditch as well, and whether or not it's piped or not.
We look at beautification as closing up some of the ditches that are our roads. Some of those neighborhoods that you check your mail, you go to the right, you may break your ankle.
piping some of the ditches next to them, sure, yes. Sir.
We also gotta be prepared though, if they get clogged up and too, so I think it really depends if it's warranted, not just cause somebody wants
Serve a
it.
purpose.
They think it's better, but if it's warranted, because we had that situation where we did out, I don't know if that was Northwood Hills or somewhere, we did something and then it got all clogged up and created a whole nother
That's what I was about
problem.
to say. Some of them they need because they drain the water.
But you're talking about stormwater.
Storm drains.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Cause you remember when DOT put a lot of the roads in, they never got right of ways and stuff, and so they just spill or standing, they get clogged up, there's not enough continuous maintenance.
Is that a donut hole? What you're talking about?
No, a city, but it's all.
City, but
DOT
DOT
roads.
streets.
They've been wanting to get the roads repaved and we looked them up on the ladder, they're way down.
We've also found, in terms of the median sweeping, we pilot tested several pieces of equipment, and we did find an attachment that can go in one of our trucks that has a sweeper arm that'll do a fairly good job of getting the dirt off of the medians, and that's why the weeds grow on the medians. If we can get them cleaned, occasionally do painting, but doing the sweeping of the medians as well as the streets is going to keep the weeds down quite a bit. And
Orangeburg
improve
and
the-
Sumter both have bought what looks like a vacuum truck that's actually a trash truck that they can go by and ride down and suck up all this stuff. Robert says you can get an attachment like that can go on our street sweepers. So they could actually, instead of sweeping, they could go by and suck up all the trash first and then
Before
go.
we sweep.
And he was gonna look into it to see, what that kind of cost. I told him he should ask for it in his budget if he hasn't, but he should.
I think he has.
So what does all that cost in the past couple of years? Because we've tried to make that a priority, Ms. Wilson. What did we plug in for that?
It's 800,000 in this last year.
Yeah, we,
800,000, and then there was an additional 300 that was coupled with what was carried forward. So total over the past 2 years has been about 1.1.
That took into account us taking care of roads we shouldn't.
Yes, sir. Mowing the main corridors that are not our responsibility. But again, DOT mows them twice a year and they don't pick up the trash before they're mowed. And so it looks terrible after they're mowed. I'm not throwing rocks at DOT. That's just the reality of that. But to keep those cleaned up and cut every 2 weeks, we're spending a good bit, but I think we're seeing some return on that.
So DOT mows and leaves the grass?
They don't pick up the trash that's buried in when the grass gets high in the summertime. They don't see the cups and different things that are out there. And then when you mow it, it just shreds it to pieces and it looks terrible. So we try to keep it cut down and picked up along those corridors.
And I'm pretty sure we've already expressed that being a problem.
Oh, yes, sir. No,
Get on
and
the
we
budget.
hear about resources and so that's the response. I
is there an
understand.
amount you all want us to shoot for? Just
$1.8
kinda
million. Add $1 million to it. That's what, because honestly, it's gonna take a lot.
It takes a lot.
I mean, if you, like the secondary streets, you know,
That's how you know.
that
you get
it's-
those.
Takes a lot. It absolutely does. And
every
a lot of
community
it's
needs
manpower
to have pride.
intensive.
Like, it's not
Last
as if
question.
We clean it and people stop
Some
dumping.
sort of beautification plan that we have? Like, when we're talking about the corridors, and is there a plan that we have that we could say, hey, here's what we're doing on this side of town or that side of town?
Yes, sir, and
beautification.
I owe that to y'all, where we've got plantings, what we've done, where we've got additional plantings planned, the corridor cuttings that we're doing, we've put that together, and we've got an accounting of every dollar that we spent, so they're doing a good job of keeping up with that, so I'll share that as well.
Thanks.
And again, I think the forestry team does a great job with the plantings. The medians look good that we're in charge of.
Yes, sir. And it's a combination of forestry and beautification folks, and then also the solid waste, the street sweeping and that sort of thing, so.
And some of that was already part of the program, as part of the regular operating budget.
That's right.
This other money that we talked about has been one-time money. It wasn't programmed as a,
But I think what I'm hearing is we need to get to a sustained number that we are setting aside to sustain the program that we aspire to have, so.
and it has been included in submitted budgets, but
And if the
That along with
conversation's
the belt.
happening for that to be included in the extension of Penny, we should know that number
Right.
to really take care of every mile of every neighborhood.
That's
commercial
what,
road.
Councilman Brandon was here talking to me about. So he's proposing that as part of it, that they carve out X amount.
And that's what we need to know what that number looks like for us to truly take it. DOT right of ways, everything within the city.
Got 492 miles worth of road, so what does that equate
Is
to?
that county or city?
That's us.
A city alone?
City alone, 72% are owned by the state, so if we could figure out what they charge, on the highway for that cleanup service, then we could put a number to it.
Once every what? 3 weeks?
Yes, Ms. Herbert.
I know, because the men were talking, and I just wanted to, as far as the Christmas decorations, making sure we include Harbison. That they're considered, as a part of it as
That's a
well.
good idea.
Okay.
Because of all the hospitality dollars that they bring, to the city of Columbia, that they remind.
So our notes were really reflective of getting Main Street up to speed, but is that the direction you all want us to address all the other hospitality
So
districts?
Robert and I had talked with Harbison a while ago about
They
doing
applied.
something. Well, I think it was gonna be a departmental thing with the Christmas stuff. And we needed to have a follow-up meeting and didn't have that opportunity. But it came out of the discussion of how much income comes from them, but they aren't organized as such to take advantage of using like their hospitality dollars.
Well, they had multiple times, they've had different directors and this and that, but they're not generating the funds that they used to generate either.
But these are for Christmas decorations.
No, but I think from the application process, are they applying for money? Because part of what we were talking about in the Christmas decorations is making that part of the requirement is we fund these multiple groups. We fund 5 Points, we fund Vista, we fund Noma, we fund,
Well, we had talked, when we met, we talked directly with Robert. It wasn't through a funding process, but putting it in his budget. That was a discussion we had.
Just for Harbison?
Trying to figure out what can we do, what's the appropriate best thing that can be done.
No, he doesn't.
I don't know. And we'll talk to him about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Pieces of equipment I want
But
to
I
add.
think, but I pulled in Robert for what can we do?
Yeah.
Because in order to figure out where it comes from, we needed to look at, and we were just trying to figure out, making sure we have something in Harbison. And I am saying that may have dropped off the radar in the follow-up on my
Did we
end.
used to fund ice skating rink?
Yeah.
What happened to that? What was the deal?
Well, we had a window of opportunity to use the Museum of Art location, and then there was construction going on, and then that one, we couldn't do it that
Where did we put
year.
it? Harbison?
We did it at Columbiana that year. And for the I mean, people liked it, but for the amount of money and the security necessary to do it right out there, it wasn't sustainable. But,
That'd be a great town of Forest Acres feature. At the new Risson Mall. If you're listening.
You know, part of, as we talked about Christmas lights, is trying to have a Christmas market.
Yeah.
Where you could put local vendors, like the people that are on Soda City, in a place where for 2 weeks or something, they're in one of our parking lots and it stays open and it's a place people could come visit, and like they do in other cities, a true Christmas market.
I mean, that's what's on, that's what
Yeah,
we
you
put
got
here,
it in there.
but I guess that's what I wanna make sure I'm clear about, and then we probably need to turn the corner here for the last section. Whatever funding we are able to dedicate is the effort for Main Street Christmas lights in some shape or decor in some shape, form, or fashion. Is that the first priority of what you, because you can continue to tell us that you were being inundated, that it wasn't
Christmas
festive.
time, it was really about, but I think we really want to push it towards our hospitality districts, that there's some Christmas decorations. I think the lights that we're seeing on Main Street are gonna get taken care by the foundation. They're in discussions now with the Boyd family who wants to do a canopy. The question is, how do they do the canopy? I suggested to those folks that they do vertical lights, not the other lights.
Okay.
We also need to agree on what are the hospitality districts.
Right. So I've heard so if there's an effort with the hospitality districts, are we talking about Divine Street and Rosewood? And are we talking about the main ones like North Main and
I think our streets,
and
5 Points.
Yeah, I mean, I think you start with
Vista.
the corridors there,
And somewhere.
the hospitality corridors, and
okay.
We should have a good list of the merchants associations that are active, right?
Certain people like the stuff.
Me too.
And then I don't
The
know,
main.
that's why I was asking if we're talking about consistency or we're talking about just having something period. Because North Main
I
does
mean,
have stuff.
you know, y'all, it could be as simple as buying 250 4-foot Christmas trees and having one in every storefront with lights on it would be super inviting. It doesn't have to be these ornate things hanging from up poles and all of that.
I think if you put clear lights down Main Street and trees, that's gonna make a difference right there by itself, just consistently. But again, if, we're just trying to understand what the intentions are.
You can also turn it into like, something fun where like the businesses get to decorate the tree, to advertise, you know, their stuff. And like when you have pride, like, oh, our business put this together, you start to see some cool things,
I
so.
love riding through those neighborhoods that have a Christmas tree at the end of their driveways or whatever. I mean, it just makes you feel like, you know, I don't think we have to go elaborate decorations, but maybe it's, you know, Christmas trees for all these main corridors, and it just creates that feeling. I don't know what the answer is, Teresa. I just think we look at.
You can tell who the Hallmark watchers are here.
Hey, for the record, I requested the 3 trees next to City Hall so I could take some pictures.
Too much information.
And other people took pictures too,
I
so.
love Hallmark, and I love the idea. I mean, just
We
look.
for years, we had, you felt Christmassy downtown, and, you know, some
make it
cities are putting up, you know, tents and putting these pop-up bars in a way for you to go make a reservation and have drinks and appetizers, and a different feel where it feels like a winter lodge, you know? We just don't have.
That was my that's what I'm just asking, because I wanted, you know, when you focus it on downtown, that's what you said. So that was what I thought the focus was, and not getting so much into the districts. If there's
Maybe
some
we try
needs
it
there, then
downtown
we
and
can help with that maybe, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But I
Okay.
still think that we should put in some kind of language if they're getting these hospitality dollars that they have to work with us for holiday I don't know the right language, but something to encourage them.
And I'm not in the
participate.
weeds on the numbers either, but I would love to consider bringing the ice skate ring back. If it could happen. I'll propose to my wife on the ice skate ring.
We should
2000.
have the general.
Hey, well, hey,
I can't have that memory anymore.
hey, man, we're not here to take care of your,
And I think I told my meniscus while I was getting on.
Did you really?
I think I did.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I've heard.
Maybe we should discuss the
That was a sign right there.
hey, you can go to Chafin anytime you want.
Exactly.
They got an ice skate rink right there off the
Yeah,
lake.
but think about it, you get hot chocolate, you
Can't
walk
spell
down
it.
Main Street.
Can't spell ice.
Chestnuts roasting
Yep,
in the
can't spell ice
microwave.
skating without I.
Jack Daniels nipping up your nose.
It was very well utilized when it was on Main Street. It was.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
Riverfront is also beautiful. Riverfront's gonna be a little busy.
It was pretty
All right.
expensive.
So we will take all this under advisement and, we'll be back for more. Let's switch gears if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, to our last item, which is the update on special event fees. Mr. Harold Reeves, Special Events Coordinator.
Can we put your face and picture up for that tab?
Send him to Harold.
Address.
Home address.
That's right. Good afternoon, Ms. Wilson and council. First of all, I want to start out by saying it's great to be back home. I literally grew up in the city of Columbia and raised my family, and now to have the opportunity to come back and perform a job that I love and have passion for is just an incredible opportunity. So I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity. If council's will, I'd like to kind of give you a high-level overview of where special events and the fees were this time last year, and then where we are now, if that's okay. This time last year, the only fee that was collected to have any event in the city of Columbia was a $5 special event parade permit. There were no fees for road closures, there were no fees for constructions or cranes, nothing to help offset or cover the cost for events. Fast forward to June of '23, whenever City Council revisited the city ordinances that took effect in January of 2021. I was hired in December, started working immediately with staff and the community. The fees were instituted in January as described in the ordinance. One thing that I want to make clear is that staff did a great job of presenting council with comparisons of other cities and municipalities our size to get an equitable and fair fee structure of what they were charging to make sure that our fees are either the same or lower than what our other sister cities have around this region. And they've done that. One question that we have and that everyone has been talking about is when it comes to street closings for neighborhoods. And what is a neighborhood block party versus a neighborhood doing an event where you're inviting people from the outside in? And what I'm talking about is so far this year, we've had 5 neighborhood street closing requests. And of those, Cottontown Art Crawl, they requested to close 6 streets. They had 18 barricades, 14 roll carts. They did street sweeping for a total of $885. Lent on Lawn was an event that occurred in Shanding, South Prospect. It was a little neighborhood get-together. They did the $25 parade permit, 9 barricades for a total of $115. A community Easter egg hunt on Ashley Street by the Gamma Nu Omega, $25 permit fee, 4 barricades, $65. Art in the Gardens, Wales Gardens. We had some pushback there. That was $25 permit fee, 6 barricades for a total of $85. Cross Hill Neighborhood Association was a special event fee of $25, 4 barricades for a total of $65. We have one coming up, Art in the Yard, Melrose Heights, which is 5 streets, $25 permit, $160 for 16 barricades for $185. Why do I say that? Because I'm looking for recommendations from you all. A normal neighborhood street closing, as you all know, I'm the neighborhood president for Hampton Ridge Neighborhood Association. Sorry, Neighborhood Association. We collect an annual membership to cover these costs. So we expect, to be able to do that. A normal neighborhood street closing would average about $65. That's the $25 special event permit, and then $10 per barricade. It normally takes 4 barricades. I think what we need to look at and get direction from you is whenever the neighborhoods are not doing just a simple neighborhood street closing, but they're encompassing art crawls or art in the yard where you're bringing people from outside the community into the community. And, I'll just use Melrose Heights as an example. I went and met with them, had to leave with some Band-Aids. This was when we first started. But before we left, I was able to give them some recommendations about finding other opportunities to raise funds. And they did. They took sponsorships. So they got some businesses from that area and received sponsorships to offset the cost.
So, Harold, can you go over that specific charge for Melrose?
Yes.
What all does that entail?
It's a $25 permit, the special event permit fee. They're using 16 barricades because they're closing off 5 streets. And then, that's it.
Barricades
Yeah, the
are.
barricades are $10 a piece, so there's 16, so that's $160. And then the $25 special event permit fee, $185.
$185 is the expense from the neighborhood association.
Yes.
And they're not using any off-duty?
No, they've never used off-duty officers in the past.
Okay.
And the permit fee, that $25 fee, that's in line with any neighborhood? Or
Yes.
is that different? Is the permit fee different for a different type entity?
Yes, and we can go over that if you don't mind. Of course, the major festival or events permits are $100. Festival or event, just any kind of outdoor event is $100. When we get to private or public gatherings, that may be sale or service of food, beverages, outdoor entertainment, is $50. And then our private or public gatherings, which includes, food, beverages, outdoor entertainment, is also $50. And then neighborhood gatherings, block parties are $50. I'm sorry, it's $25. So you've made some provisions, from normal festivals to where, it's least impactful on the communities and neighborhood associations.
We have shortened the timeline of when they have to contact you to put it in motion for that permit, right? It used to be a pretty long lead time.
It's 90 days for most of them, and then 60 days for the public or private gatherings, and 30 days for neighborhood.
30 days for neighborhood.
But
Okay.
I work with everyone. I mean, we understand that, things happen. So as long as it's within reason, we work with them. So no one has been denied on a time basis.
Is there any kind of liability coverage in that permit process? I mean, what is the core reason we do a parade permit? There's got to be some sort of
For
official
awareness,
record.
Yeah, we've got to have some type of awareness so that the police department, public
Yes.
works, everybody has an opportunity to be aware of it, to be able to respond to it. Plus 911, fire, everyone has to be made aware that that's occurring.
They are made aware
Yes,
of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And so Cottontown, they would have had, their permit fee would have been $100
Cottontown was well, it was $25.
for the art crawl.
Yes.
And so how did we get to the total price was 800 and some change?
Yeah, they closed 6 streets, which was roll carts, but they requested the street sweepers. That takes 8 hours at $50, so that's $400. That's
over the money.
that was something that they requested. And of course, they did pass that along to the vendors and all that they had.
How much are the roll carts?
Roll carts are $20 a piece.
And we come out there, drop off and pick up full cans. Okay.
And, understand, I know that you all did this whenever you passed the ordinance, but this is not covering the cost. This is just merely trying to offset some of the cost. And real quick, while I'm thinking about it, when you did the permit processing fees for the cranes and contractors and all, it's working. I'll tell you that right now. From January 1 to now, we've we've received $13,500 in permit fees. One story I shared with several of you all, back in January, I had a contractor come to me, wanted to close the 600 block of Assembly Street, the outside lane, and I gave him a bill for $16,000. Automatically came back for 8 days. So, I mean, it's holding them accountable.
They had originally asked
Yes,
for what?
yeah, they wanted
like,
30 days, so that would be
Right.
$16,000.
Need that long.
And so it is holding and making these contractors and crane companies think about what they're doing and they're being accountable.
So, Mr. Mayor, let me ask you this. So if, some neighborhoods are more organized, better than others, can we have staff look at creating some sort of grant opportunity for neighborhoods that don't consistently have those funds available if they want to go the neighborhood gathering route? Sounds like our contractors' fees alone for closing a street might be a good source to do a set aside for neighborhood, community-minded events. I just
But I
want,
mean, Will, what are you thinking for a qualifier for that? I mean, because I heard from a neighborhood who was like, I think, and then I find out they got 40 grand in the bank.
yeah,
You know,
that's why-
it's like, wait a minute,
let's
I don't understand.
rely on staff, community development, CCN to tell us, give us some parameters of what an application would look like for a grant.
I would like,
Things like that.
I would like that, because I've been to some neighborhood meetings where you have, it's a big deal to try to get $10 dues from some of them. And staff can make the decision, maybe community development, they'll know if it's a neighborhood who has money and is just trying to, or just hem and hawing about paying a little bit, versus a neighborhood that hasn't had an event and they really don't have due paying members. It
Can I
could be
throw-
good for the neighborhood.
throw out an option of consideration. You could give away, and maybe you just use National Night Out is that when they close streets and they do all that, that's a gimme on us. Because we're we're sponsoring
Right.
that event, we're encouraging it with and so these neighborhoods, that's usually the main event that they have anyway, so that would be the gimme, and everything else, you just pay the fee, it's not that much, instead of,
This also-
because if we start exempting, what's the limit though? Who says that a neighborhood then's not gonna start closing down a street every other weekend because they wanna have a gathering? I'm
I see what
thinking
you're
of
saying.
the reverse of
Yeah.
it, the devil's advocate, where does it draw the line? And then how do you make that inclusionary all the way across? Because some organizations don't have any dues, some of them do.
But we sit here and great points. But we sit here and we want to say we want to build CCN in the 117 neighborhoods in Columbia because maybe 20% of them are active? I mean, we should look at this as a way to start bolstering interest in your community. Hey, this is available. Do you want to just close down a street on a Sunday? But we don't want that to be abused, obviously. We don't want wine tastings every weekend in whatever neighborhood. So again, I would like to get feedback from staff, from community development, from Harold. What are people saying?
I think about the Belmont neighborhood. They don't shut down a street. They take over the church parking lot. That's their partner in there.
Well, that's like my neighborhood takes over the park, but
Yeah.
a lot of neighborhoods don't have parks to take over. So,
Thinking about that. So, I think there are options and I just think if we're gonna give a gimme there, we need to figure out what that gimme is.
I kind of like to
I was
let
about
this
to.
year, what I'd really like to do is let this year kind of play out, and let's kind of do a 2024 review at the end of the year, and kind of see what worked, what didn't, and if we want to make some slight changes to it, I'm all in. I think it'd be good before we tweak it to let it kind of resonate. Some of the complaints I've got is, most of them are, but we've never had to do this before.
But that's gonna happen.
And I know, and that's what I'm saying, but that's not technically a
We
legitimate.
can't do it.
And that's what I'm saying, it's
We've
not
never
a,
had
because we
to
haven't
do
done it before, it's not a legitimate complaint. If it was onerous enough where it actually stopped behavior that we want to promote, I would be the first to say we messed up. But I just think it's because people haven't had to do it in the past and they don't want to. That's all.
I'd rather pay for the barriers myself out of my account then start exempting, because then I just don't know where you draw the line.
Well, that's what I was, seriously, I mean, I hate to say this, but, in a lot of these places, and we have one specific group, and what really made me go back to saying, I think we're doing the right thing, was the person said, I have 400 people I have to report back to. About $65. So, I mean, do the math, and you can put a jar, okay, at the event, and it would be taken care of. So I think in a certain way, though, that we should let this kind of play out before we start tweaking it.
I think if you look at the volume of the events that we've done and
Chief.
apply exactly what
Chief.
you.
Don't let Erica get her ruler out.
Sorry.
I think if you look at the steps that you all have taken, which is a complete, it is something brand new, and it's changed, and we all know how everybody adjusts to change, but you're talking about, 2 or 3, outliers where somebody's not really happy. In the grand scheme of things, this has worked beautifully. And I think it's probably checked some people that we would spin up for an event that was, was for a very small group. And maybe they've reconsidered and just done something that they can manage better without, involving the city. And, I mean, it's been, to me, it's been wildly successful.
When's the 1 year mark from when we put it in place?
January 1. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm kind of like Daniel, I mean, I would rather help the neighborhoods that I represent figure out how to find sponsors and actually kind of raise the level of what they're doing than to go backwards. So
And that's one of my directives from the city managers, to try to find alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, I would rather say, hey, guys, let me help you. Let me help
I'm
you.
not rude.
Because that's what my job is anyway.
I was raised as a
Tina said she wasn't talking today anyway.
Councilman Bailey wanted me to interrupt, and I said I was raised as a lady, so I would not do that. But I did have a question. So Cottontown, I think, probably had one of the bigger bills, but they also get hospitality funds. And can you use hospitality funds to pay for some of those costs, or that would have to come out of other money?
Are y'all listening to the question?
Or did they not get it this year?
They have an application for next year, but then some of the, permits would not be one of the eligible expenses.
Okay, that's what I was
So
asking.
some of the expenses would not be eligible. But certainly there are some, and I think I had Tina look to see what of our neighborhood, mostly it's some of the merchant associations, and which neighborhoods do actually have requests in for hospitality tax dollars for those bigger community-wide events that the public is coming to.
Yeah, I think they get like 15,000. They don't get a whole lot, but they do get some. previously.
I do encourage you all to not have a knee-jerk reaction and to give it a little time and know that we're committed to working through with the organization or neighborhood. We need to reference churches as well. We've got a request in, and I'll let Harold talk about that. But, letting us make a couple judgment calls if it's truly something, which we've done, to do a one-time exception or waiver to let people kind of ease their way into the new process. But typically, I mean, we couldn't have a better face of this than Harold Reeves. He's very great about educating these organizers and helping to provide them some options. And for the most part, people have kind of fallen in line and understood it better, and or if they just didn't, we did a one-time exception or waiver to say, hey, we know this is new, but after this, you're gonna, and maybe you need to start organizing with your neighborhood
That's the key.
about what this is gonna look like going forward. It's not a real onerous request on what we're asking of the neighborhoods. And it truly is about safety. So when they start saying, well, we can get our own barricades, then no, you can't, because they may not be the right kind, and we wouldn't know you're doing that. And the first time a child is injured or hurt, then that is why we're saying you have to follow
I think
these
people don't
rules.
understand what goes through the process of
Right.
it too. There is a cost to do all that. And, you know, let's be realistic, the majority of people who have complained about it have the resources, which is.
Which I wasn't gonna say that, Mary, but it's been interesting, and to me, that, you know, yes, that part has been
What
interesting.
about, what is the harm? Help me understand the harm, somebody, with having a grant application that staff has discretion to approve or deny?
Well,
That
It
way,
would cost us more to do the grant.
Manage that than how much the cost of
Than the
what
cost
it
of the
is.
grant would be. I mean, you gotta think
Yes,
about that
the-
too. You think about all the staff time that would take just to do a grant for $50, $65 on average.
so my thoughts were the grant application, they completed, the mayor is gonna pay it out of his own pocket, remember, for that. So if he decides to pass it,
For my people, I would.
for your people.
You offer papers to feel people's minds,
And I'm,
because I've done that before.
I'm also
like,
worried
how
about
much is it gonna
it being a
be for that?
deterrent. Let's say
I
some of
like
these neighborhoods.
sponsored by the Bailey Law Firm much
I'm happy.
better.
I promise you, I'm happy to sponsor, but I'm worried about it being a deterrent to smaller neighborhoods, right? Who just hear the word fee and just say, oh, we don't have any money, we haven't met in 6 months, we
But-
can't do this. And they're not even gonna go to step and call.
So
No,
Tyler,
they're
why?
gonna
gonna call.
They're gonna
why-
call their council.
Yeah, they're gonna call.
Why don't we do what the manager said, and let's give it the rest of the year, because most of these neighborhoods have been doing these, especially in neighborhoods that we're concerned about could afford it. They've been doing different things. They don't close streets. They take advantage of their churches in the neighborhood. I mean, so why don't we see what happens over the year, and if we need to come up with a process, then let's do that. But let's give it time to flush out, at least till January. Don't y'all agree?
Yeah.
That would give us a full year to really look at it.
I don't
And
think
then-
Mr. Grayeye's gonna stop having the kids coming and eating the hot dogs. I mean, they, you know, and we would, I don't want you to, I think because we have a pretty good handle, whether it's through community development staff or just our relationships with some of our neighborhood leaders, I feel like they will reach out if they are feeling some kind of way that
They
like,
definitely will
before they
reach
would
out.
not do something. I really do.
Like Ms. Wellman.
And I have worked with Ms. Kay Patterson, CCN Neighborhood President. I'm actually meeting with them in the April.
And I think he'll communicate, Harold's gonna, we will make sure, Councilman, that we communicate that if you know of your smaller neighborhoods where
We've
you
never
feel
left
like
the
this
neighborhood
is
hanging, ever.
an
as long as
issue,
I've
let
been
us
around.
know. So
And we never
and
will.
then you want just, and with the churches too, you know, but one that's coming up
Yes.
where there will be the fee.
I'd like to get, churches are not notated anywhere in here, and I want to get your input on how do we treat churches when they're going to do a community event or an event coming up, like Trinity is going to do an event Thursday night. They want to host food trucks on Sumter Street. That would be $100 permit fee normally, along with the barricades. That's what I'm prepared to move forward with. I just want to get your approval before.
Well, they're using the street, not the parking lot.
Right,
So they
right.
do have an option to do
Yes,
it inside the
exact-
parking lot.
Yes, exactly,
They have a huge parking lot right there.
right.
I guess we have to treat them like any other nonprofit. Some of these neighborhoods are nonprofits, you can't give a special exception.
No, I agree.
That's what I'm prepared to do. I just wanted to make sure that it was,
Unless we wanted to make some exceptions for nonprofits, but that would require them not paying,
That'd be everything.
so
That'd be 34% of what happens in Columbia.
putting that out there.
I did want to note too, Mr. Reeves, that Ms. Wellman, I think most of you all got her letter, but she did note that working with you was a pleasure and working with your department, and you were very patient and thorough in your outreach and explanations. She found you to be very sincere and responsive.
it's our team. It's not me, it's our city team, everybody that works together. But thank you,
Process.
thank you.
Put that last part in all caps.
I found that one paragraph.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
I found that one paragraph.
And And then, and
That was a tight
the
one.
effort with the website.
I was gonna go over that
You
next.
you know, the whole team, Harold and Jay and
They got
It has-
sponsors and
Boy and
stuff.
all are going to Raleigh.
I think sometimes.
Council directed, they wanted us to really look at our City of Columbia Special Events website. And Jay Carter and Doug with InDesign has done a great job of improving that. We do now have the actual
Website
street
looks great.
closing steps, everything. And you can also see that there are, all the forms that you need to fill out are there, downloadable. So our team has done a great job. We have a lot further to go, but I mean, we've addressed it. The Columbia Police Department website mirrors what our City of Columbia website has for special events. So a lot of work's been done there. But as you all know, we partnered with Extra Duty Solutions to actually do our off-duty scheduling of officers, as well as collecting and invoicing for all of our city services. And, I just want to say, we are not trying to generate revenue. We're just trying to offset some of our costs and be able to help, repair our barricades and all this stuff as we move along. Just to give you an idea, we started the process February the 5th with Extra Duty Solutions. That month, we recouped $2,030.15. We had 55 roll carts, 52 barricades. The police department, their part of the 2% that we recoup was $377.75. And then all of the other, the admin fee, the barricades, the roll carts, everything else was $1,652.40. In March, of course, we had St. Patrick's Day. We've had several large events. We recouped $76,232.38. That was 310 roll carts, 391 barricades. The police department recoup was $49,070.72. The fire department, who is now moving toward Extra Duty Solutions, recouped $2,791.31. And then Public Works and everything that has to do with barricades, roll carts, traffic engineering was $24,370.35 for, like I said, the total of $76,000. That is a cost that we've never been able to recoup to help offset some of the things that we're doing when it comes to special events. I think the city manager put out that that state of South Carolina is 10th in the nation as far as growth, and we've grown 5.7% since 2010. And so, we're having a lot more requests for activities. We want to make sure that we have all types of events, but I think this is going to be an opportunity not to make money, but to help offset some of the costs that we do have.
Harold, let me just, can you make one clarification? We have recouped CPD off-duty fees in the past. It was just simply the organizations cut checks. There's not this direct portal where invoices come in. Because festivals have events.
Well, they paid off-duty officers. That's separate.
Okay.
This is just the admin fee, like the 2% which
I was saying, go to the mic.
Huge distinction. We've always had vendors paying directly, off duty. This third-party vendor coordinates all that now, but the fee he's talking about we recouped is the administrative costs that we associate with the use of equipment, their vehicles, fuel.
The $40,000 in the month of March, what does that entail? Is that recoup fee, or is that the hourly rate we paid?
No,
That's just a recoup fee.
Okay.
scratch anything to do with payment of office.
About $10
Gotcha.
an hour, right?
It's $2, it's
Part of that
2%,
hourly
yeah.
rate that is charged.
It's 2% of the hourly rate, $50 or 2%. We actually collect, EDS collects 10%. So it's 12% admin fee.
So towards fleet maintenance and, okay.
Yes. Did I confuse you?
I didn't know they were getting 10%.
That was what was voted on back in June. It's a 12%, they get 10, we get 2 for administering the program.
This company works with a lot of other
Yeah.
public safety.
Highway Patrol is getting ready to go with them. I mean, it's a national organization.
Well, I mean, part of trying to recruit because, the officer makes some money, but we've got the cost for the car, the gas, the insurance, the uniforms, the guns, everything.
And it's a minimal fee to offset some of the things that we have.
So it's only what, $5? It's $50 an hour plus the fee, right? So it's about $10 more an hour than it was for
Yeah.
a decade.
Chief, correct me if I'm wrong,
Still
I
a
think
deal.
the sheriff's department's 55 or 60, Major, something like that. So it's still,
Still a
I'd say,
deal.
compatible,
What's that company again?
Extra Duty Solutions.
We're committed to monitoring this very closely, but I do appreciate the opportunity to let us try to see how it works for the first year.
Test the market, see how it works.
Any other questions? Okay,
Thanks, Harold.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.
See something. We're done?
Yes, sir.
I just sent you